They say time flies when you're having fun. On this episode of Driven Too Far, we're wrapping up season 1 and talking about our last 123 episodes and hitting the highlights.
Hello, I'm Andrew Winkler with Chief Carriers, and this is Driven Too Far, the truth about trucking, a podcast that helps over-the-road truck drivers balance career and family.
Hey, welcome back to Driven Too Far as we wrap up season 1. We launched our first episode of this podcast back in November of 2022 with the idea that we wanted to help professional truck drivers. We wanted to give you a resource out there, something that could help you see behind the scenes of a typical trucking company, how decisions get made, and the why behind all those decisions. So with over 120 episodes in season 1, I sincerely hope that we've been able to deliver some kind of useful content for you over the last 2.5 years. We've covered a lot of topics in 123 episodes. So we covered things like safety. We covered things like driver hiring. What's the best way to get hired? How do you get through the application process? We talked a lot about recruiting and recruiters. How do you approach recruiting? How do you get the truth out of those recruiters? How do you know who to drive for in the first place, right? There's so many companies out there and so many choices. What are the best companies? What do they look like? And who should I apply to? We talked a lot about dealing with truck brokers, how to maximize your income as a company driver. We showed you how to get over $100,000 a year as a company driver. It's absolutely possible. We talked about rates and pricing and the economy and all the stuff out there that's happening in our industry that impacts us every day. We talked about better ways for you to manage your home time, get more home time, make sure you're home on time with the family when you need to be. What it's like to be, life on the road. How can you make it as good as it possibly can be? We've done some interviews with a lot of interesting people. We've had law enforcement and state troopers and people from trucking against trafficking. We've talked to technology vendors. We've talked about dash cameras, things like that. One of the big things that we talked about, we got a lot of interest in, was student drivers. So maybe you were interested in getting a start in the trucking industry and you weren't sure where to start. So we tried to do a few episodes on that. We took you through some school programs, what to expect, what that process looks like. We touched on driver health, but probably the biggest thing we touched on over the last couple of years was driver lease programs. And that's still the hot topic today. It's what everybody wants to know about. I think over 50% of the calls we receive in our recruiting department, drivers want to know about the lease purchase programs and how do they work. So we'll continue to spend time on topics like that. So we're going to step away for a little bit here as we try to retool and refresh and we get ready for a season 2 of Driven Too Far. We'll be bringing you some fresh content on the topics that you want to hear about most. A sincere thank you for all the likes, comments, and shares. We really, truly appreciate your support of this podcast, and we're absolutely thrilled that it's taken off like it has over the last couple of years. Season 2 is just around the corner. We'll be launching our very first episode of Season 2 on May the 5th. So until then, stay safe, keep it between the lines, and thanks for all you do to keep America moving.